let's turn to your latest big board 3.0 up on SI.com now, and a record number of underclassmen declared for the draft Tuesday. You have one of them at the top of your board. It's Jadeveon Clowney, the pass rusher from South Carolina. What do you make of Bob McNair, the Houston owner, calling him a once-in-a-decade type player?
Yeah, it's always interesting when the owner of the number one pick makes a comment like that about a player who could go number one. I think you know, eh, first off, I think it's probably just a casual observation. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney is a very talented player, and I don't think there's any hiding that. I think it's obvious for NFL teams and their scouts that he has that sort of ability to be a potential number one pick. There's always the possibility that he's just trying to sort of stoke the fires a little bit on maybe gauging some trade interest. If a team might want to come up to get Clowney at number one, I think he's putting on the table the possibility that Houston will take him. So you look at, maybe St. Louis at 2 or Jacksonville at 3. I mean, there are teams that need quarterbacks all over the top 10, but I think Clowney's another guy that some team might want to jump up and grab by giving up a couple of draft picks. So, if Houston can slide down 2, 3 spots, still get a quarterback, and let someone else take Clowney, they might consider that. And a comment like that might put the pressure on some of those other teams to make a move.
Yeah, let the guessing games begin. We're not even through January yet. Aside from Clowney, how big of an impact do you think the underclassmen will have on the top of the first round of the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see quite a few. When you sort of look at the quarterback position, I think is where you start. Teddy Bridgewater, and then Johnny Manziel, obviously Blake Bortles. I mentioned those guys. Those are 3 that could be in the top 10 for sure. And wide receiver too, Sammy Watkins. I mean, there's underclassmen talent all over the board. You're not going to see all of them drafted, which is sort of the unfortunate downside of having all these guys come out, is that some of them will be free agents, some of them won't end up on teams. But I think there's a lot of talent in that non-senior category. So I would be surprised if there aren't, 7, 8 underclassmen in those first 10, 12 picks.
Chris, you mentioned, touched on it a little bit. Of the 73 underclassmen who declared last year, 21 of them went undrafted. It's almost a third. If that happens again this year, do you see the trend of record numbers of underclassmen declaring for the draft early? Do you see that trend continuing?
It's hard to say, because you would think, just looking at that number, that you would have a decrease this year, but we were at 88 had declared as of yesterday, which they still have until they have today to make that decision. So it probably will go up a couple more. So I mean, you would think, just based on those numbers alone, that you would see less underclassmen declare. But at the same time, getting to free agency as an undrafted player is not always the worst situation in the NFL. Kerry Robinson for the Saints, their running back, was a guy that was an undrafted free agent and wound up playing huge minutes for them and into the playoffs. So you can kind of pick where you want to go, even if if you slip through the draft and then go through that free agency process. So I think it's obviously important for the college guys to get to the next level. And I don't think there's any lack of desperation to get to the next level. So I don't know that we'll see those numbers dwindle a lot going forward.